All right, hi guys. My name's Phoenix. This is Lessthanahome. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have another content creator with us. Her name is Shannon with Creepshow Art. She runs a commentary channel here on YouTube, and she's had previous experiences with homelessness. So I wanted to bring her on today to discuss pretty much what she's gone through.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. This is actually our second time doing this interview. I screwed up the audio on the first one, but I think we have everything running well this time. So before, I had mentioned that I've been watching Creepshow Arts for a very long time. It was right around, my girlfriend had said it was right around when you had 20,000 subscribers, and you opening up about your experiences homeless like really inspired us to start producing content. It gave us hope to be able to find a way out, work harder, understand that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I just felt like hearing your story, it was important for me to put out ours, because if we could start like a chain reaction of people talking about their experiences more, it might be able to destigmatize the topic, to remove some stereotypes, to show that a lot of times homelessness is just everyday people that you wouldn't even know. Like we can blend in with the rest of the public, no problem.
Exactly, and that's something that I think it's very special to me. Whenever I've told you this before, but whenever someone says that to me, it's always really impactful, because I didn't start talking about it in order to have that reaction. I just started talking about it because it was something I went through, and it was something that I struggled with, and I was just like, you know what, I can't not be open with this. Absolutely. I can't not talk about this, because it when you're homeless and you go through that, it fundamentally changes a lot of what you are and how you think. So for me, it was just like, I'm a different person because I was homeless, and if I don't talk about how I value things differently now, I feel like I would be inauthentic. And to have people be impacted by that idea alone and want to use that to make something better, that's so important to me. And anything I can ever do to like help that cause, I'm gonna do, because that's so like impactful.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, right now, like, I know I'm just getting my start, but it's I don't know, it's just something I'm passionate about. Like, I see so many people, like, especially when I go into the city and stuff, who have it so much worse. They're sleeping in a sleeping bag on the side of the road, getting rained on, especially with the recent stuff going on in the world. Like, a lot of shelters are closed, and just things are like really difficult. And when, I see them, they'll be sitting out like with a sign or whatever the case may be, and it's people won't even make eye contact with them, and I can only imagine how dehumanizing that must feel.
Yeah.
It's we just need a little more kindness towards the community, well, a lot more, but simple little things could mean a lot. So I mean, it's something that I plan to work on as long as I can. It's something that'll always stick with me. And
yeah, no, completely.
All right, so if you would just like to go over an overview of how you became homeless, just for people who may not know your story.
Okay, so basically, when I became homeless, I genuinely thought it was going to be like a really short-term thing. I wasn't super I wasn't the type of person who like looked up anything about it. I didn't like research, oh, what do you do if you're in this situation? I just thought this was going to be my life for a couple months with my husband and his friend, and it was just going to be really quick and then it'd be over. But basically what happened is I had been living at home with my parents, and I had been working at a storage facility, and that storage facility job is fucking dangerous. I don't know why. Well, I do know why it's so dangerous, but it's one of those things where I didn't think that it would be dangerous when I took it. And I ended up being assaulted at work. And due to that, and the fact that my boss genuinely cared more about, like, well, I know that man assaulted you, but he pays a lot of money to rent here, so we're just not going to evict him. Due to my boss saying that, I quit. And after I quit, my parents kind of looked at me and they said, you don't have a job, you're not going to school, you need to figure your life out. So they basically pushed me out of the nest. And they just told me I needed to move out. And at that point, my boyfriend and I had been talking already about leaving San Jose because it was pretty much unlivable to anyone who doesn't earn like $5,000 a month. And so we decided that we were going to leave that situation because he was also in a bad situation where he was living. And we just made the decision without researching anything. We're just going to drive until we hit a place that we like. Basically, we thought about Portland. We thought about that general area, but we were like, if we don't like Portland, we'll just keep driving. And it was this kind of mystical, naive idea, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone. It's a very whimsical way of living, and it was not smart at all to do. So we drove to Portland, and we ended up setting up camp there. We had a car. We had two cars, actually, his Ford Escape and my 2003 Honda Accord. And that's pretty much where we did everything. So I slept there. I slept in front of a Walmart and a Winco, which were right across the street from each other. We just kind of stayed there for a couple years until we were able to really like get our heads on straight and figure out what we were doing and make our way out of it, because we worked, I think I at one point was working 3 jobs, still couldn't afford to live anywhere, and it was a lot.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, one of the large barriers we face is like my partner's a waitress. Her income's like unverifiable on paper, and it's like so many places want to see you making 3 times the rent. They want to make sure you have first class and security down. We also live in a pretty expensive state. I'm sure it's like that in Oregon as well, right?
Oh yeah, Portland. It was pretty much. I think Portland and Tigard, you really couldn't get that much. Like, you couldn't live anywhere for under $1,000, but even the things that you could get that were like maybe 11,000 a month, they weren't good at all. It was one of those situations where, like, even if I applied for something, I would get rejected because of credit and whatnot. But it was also a matter of like, you're not getting a lot, and it's not. I don't know. It was just very difficult.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people who like got out of homelessness that I knew that were just like, it's insanely difficult to upkeep all of this because it's so expensive to live. There's not a lot of jobs you can have that will like pay you enough to make this, and it was just a lot.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's and I like I said, like I try to also understand where everybody comes from, and it's like as a landlord, like I know you want to make sure that you're not going to get screwed over. But it's like, it just makes it so difficult because if you don't have like a good credit score, and if you don't look at it on paper, or if you don't have any history at all, then you're often overlooked or beat up by somebody else. And it can make it can make things very hard. Let's see. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I'm also going to be answering all these questions for myself in a separate video because I realized these are probably things that I should talk about myself as well. So I'll be doing these in a different video. My opinion and stuff, or my experiences. But let's see. So this next one, I mean, you don't have to like give any like specific examples, but what were the type of work that you were doing? Like what you mentioned working like 2 or 3 jobs. Like was it retail, restaurants?
So the first job I was able to get was retail. I worked at the American Girl store, which was a pop-up shop in Washington Square Mall. Then I worked as a janitor for, I can't say the company name because she changes it all the time.
Yeah, that's okay.
I worked as a janitor at night for this absolutely bonkers woman. So I did those 2 kind of simultaneously. And then I also would work as a debt collector, which was just where you sit and you just call out to people who have debts and you try to recover them. I think there was another one. I just worked a lot of retail and jobs like that where it was very this customer service space, and it was very much like me having to go from sleeping in my car to working whatever I can and trying to look professional and trying to look not homeless.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would take me seriously.
Absolutely. And so you're neither, none of these jobs knew that you were homeless.
No. Okay. I kept that completely hidden. I never wanted anyone to know that at those jobs.
Absolutely.
Mainly because there's already a stereotype when you tell someone like, hey, I'm homeless, and the first kind of move they make is always pity.
Yeah.
And I'm a very prideful person. I never want to be pitied. So whenever I would tell someone like, oh, I'm homeless, and I would see their face morph and be like, oh, poor baby. It's like, no, I don't want that. I'm an adult. I got myself into this situation. I can get myself out. Please do not do that. And I was always telling them out of necessity as well. So it was like, it just came off condescending to me. But I did that at my jobs. One, I would be seen as a person who makes bad decisions, and therefore I would be overlooked for potential promotions. And two, it was a matter of like, at work, I wanted it to be work. I wanted no one to know what went on when I was at home. I didn't want anyone to know what was going on. I wanted there to be that like really solid divide. And if there wasn't that divide, I don't know, I feel like I would be more stressed out at work because I would be thinking that, oh, if I looked a little bit sloppier today, they would all know why.
Yeah.
Or, oh, if I seemed stressed out today, they would assume, oh, she's homeless, and I just didn't want that. So nobody knew.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's the same for us too, because like we work in the food industry, and our first thought is like, they're going to think that we have poor hygiene and that it's a safety hazard for us to like work with food. You know what I mean? And we do, I think we go over something like this later on in the questions, but we do everything we can to keep up appearances, keep up hygiene, and, you know, like we understand the industry we're in and we understand hygiene is very important, but because of those stereotypes, we worry about what people are going to think. Like, just like how you were saying, you know, just saying the word homelessness will lead to so many thoughts in somebody's mind. And it does make it difficult. And it's like the best way it is. It's like the shame and the embarrassment also come along with it. But at the end of the day, you feel better so much. Like we feel so much better. I'm sure you as well feel so much better just keeping it a secret and not telling anybody.
Oh yeah, because the potential and the doors it opens up is, it's not worth it in that kind of sense, because for me, what happened when I became homeless, I became more mindful of my appearance and my hygiene. Like, that's just something that happened for me because I was fully aware I'm not going to have the ability to shower. So how am I going to keep myself clean? I'm not going to have the ability to, you know, do certain things that like everyone else could do. So how am I going to combat that? How am I going to keep myself clean? How am I going to make sure no matter what, everything's like I am still keeping up that appearance and I'm still like have a good clean hygiene? That was always really important to me. Before, when I wasn't homeless, it wasn't that important. It was just kind of like, oh, I have a shower. I can do it whenever. It doesn't matter. So, like, that stereotype of, like, oh, homeless people dirty and gross and they don't care. It's like, no, we're all very, very aware of it. And so whenever that kind of comes up as a stereotype in terms of just, I guess, the basic idea of, like, oh, if you're homeless, you shouldn't work in food or retail or you shouldn't touch things that are that because you're dirty. It's like, no, homeless people are very aware and they're very mindful.
Yeah. I mean, even like I mentioned how different it is between homelessness in the city and homelessness in the suburbs. But even when I go into the city, because I do various things to try and connect with the homeless community out there. But I'll see them right in like a bus or a train depot, like using the sinks, washing up, washing their feet. Like I always advocate, like it's so important to keep your feet clean because so many things could happen so quickly. And it's like even me who does take care of like his hygiene just had an issue with my feet because it's just comes with the territory. And but yeah, I notice it a lot. Like, everyone tries to keep up with their hygiene in the situation, and it's even more so important because you can get sick so easily.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so I know you kind of touched on this already with your family, but did you have any support from family? And I think this says friends or other.
No, and that was more or less out of, like I said, I'm a very prideful person. And so for me, um, I just didn't want them, one, to worry. And two, when I left, I had this idea that it was going to be a very short term thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I was just going to go and make my way. And I was going to show everyone, like, what I could do by myself. And when it turned out that I couldn't really afford to live in apartments, I was getting rejected. I was having to work all of these really low-paying jobs in order to get by. I was really embarrassed by that, and I knew that if I told people, like, I knew what the reaction would be. So I just kept it to myself. I stayed in my car. I stayed, like, just isolated in that way, and I would lie to my parents. I'd be like, oh, no, we're in this nice apartment. No, you guys can't visit, but, like, it's fine. Everything's fine. And it wasn't until after I got out of homelessness that I told them, like, yeah, I've been homeless for a couple years now. And it was more of, I want to show what I can do. And if I go back and I get that kind of, like, help, I wouldn't feel as accomplished, I think. And it was just also embarrassing. People don't talk about that. Like, when you're homeless, you're not proud of it.
Absolutely.
Because of the social stigma. You're sitting there and you're like, it's not like a badge of honor. And that's what some people have, like, accused me of saying. It's like I'm bragging about being homeless. And it's just like, that's not a badge of honor that I, like, wanted to wear. Because
Absolutely.
I would much rather be one of those, like, girls who never have to do that. Or, like, who can just be, like, privileged to not have to do that. And for me, it was very, very isolating. It was very scary because I was lying to my parents. I was lying to a lot of my friends. And it's not great having to do that for, like, years at a time, but I wouldn't change it because I did grow into myself. I did grow in a way that I didn't expect. My relationship got stronger, and I think I fundamentally changed because of my homelessness. And it had my parents, like, come and saved me from it. I don't think I'd be who I am today.
Absolutely, and I find it is definitely an experience that builds a lot of character, and I fully understand it. Like you say, it's not a badge of honor. I mean, it's, you can be grateful for having the experience and having the strength to overcome it and everything that you learn from the situation. But, like, I'll find myself looking at people I went to high school with and looking how successful they are in their lives, having family, buying a house, all these things. And it doesn't feel good. It's not like, oh, well, I was homeless. It definitely,
Yeah.
people who say that, I really don't think they understand, because you can really get in your head and beat yourself up over it and, like, really put yourself down over it. And I think I'd mentioned this in the previous interview about the negative self-talk that goes on. And
Yeah.
pretty much we just try to tell ourselves we're on an extended camping trip, and we've just tried to set it up around that, like, okay, we're just camping and it's for a little while, just so we are not in that constant negative mindset of home, like we're homeless, like we failed, we've
Yeah.
yeah. So I fully understand what you're saying. Oh hey buddy. Sorry, that was a blue jay. Came right up to me. Let's see. So, all right, I'm going to ask this question just because, believe it or not, this is my most asked question. I'm just going to incorporate it to another one that we already have.
Okay.
What'd you do for food and water? And then also, what did you do for internet access, phone, and how did you charge your phone? I know they're so silly questions, but it's my number one asked question on my TikTok.
Oh, no, I love those questions because they're so fundamental, and it's like, those are, like, the helpful questions. So whenever someone asks me that, I'm like, yes. So for me, what I did for food and water, it was a lot of eating out. I mean, Portland is a very rainy, damp environment. Even just like sleeping under a tree, we had like a little, like, we had plants kind of grow in our cars.
Yep.
Not on purpose either. It was just like they set up roots there, and it was just kind of like, okay, so that's happening. That's a problem that we didn't know we would have to face. But
yeah.
okay. But we couldn't keep food there without it potentially like molding and it just going bad. So it became a lot of eating out or going to Walmart or Winco and just getting like prepackaged like meals.
Yeah.
A lot of those prepackaged salads, a lot of those like prepackaged like cookies, because when you're sitting there and you don't have a lot of things to be proud of, if you have like a little chocolate chip cookie, you're just going to feel so much better. So we did a lot of that. Water, it was either already in the car and we sealed it and we just probably drank between me and my husband a gallon a day just to make sure we were hydrated, or it was just like bottles of water, cups of water from Starbucks. For Wi-Fi and internet access, public libraries or Starbucks, they were the best. I uploaded almost all of my videos on Starbucks. If you go back to my initial videos, I can tell you exactly where I'm sitting in the library when I filmed them, and exactly where I was sitting in the Starbucks. There's one where, for me, I think it's really funny because it's such poor quality, but you can see the table shake because it's like one of the like rickety tables. It was the last one left at a Starbucks, and I was just like, well, I'm going to film today. But that's what you do. Also, in terms of charging your phone, charging your laptops, all of that, what I highly, highly, highly recommend is these are kind of expensive, but they're worth it. They have these like jump starter kits that are for cars, and you're supposed to go and charge them, and then you can jump it at any point. You don't need another car. You can just keep those around. Yep. A lot of them have outlets and USB ports in them. So I had one that ironically was left at the storage facility that I used. So I took it with me, and it could charge my laptop and phone for 3 whole days. So it would just be full charge. I'd plug it in, and then I would take it to a Starbucks or the library, and I would plug it in to get the energy, leave it in for an hour, and that would last me for 3 days. And that's what I used most of the time. And honestly, if you have a cell phone, the best thing you can do is like get a plan that allows you to have a mobile hotspot. That way you can still use your laptop, you can still use a computer, you can still pretty much do everything. Though I wouldn't recommend like trying to upload or do anything with that. Like don't download, don't upload. Just use it for surfing only, and wait for like any downloading, any uploading for when you're at a Starbucks or a public library, because those are the 2 best places. Also, Taco Bell has pretty good Wi-Fi, but it's not as good.
Absolutely. I chew through my data too. I'm like the same way. But a lot of times, like, I'll plug stuff in at work. Like, this is probably similar to what you were just talking about now. I'm plugged into it to make sure that everything doesn't like die on me in the middle of this. So I was just trying to be like prepared. But I think a lot of things people don't understand is that when you're looking for them, outlets are everywhere. You can go anywhere at any time and there's going to be some outlets there. I've even taken a liking to finding them in like landscaping displays, because they'll always have outlets in there for like, say, landscapers to come along and do their thing. And you could just leave a backpack with all your battery packs or like this is a solar generator. You can just plug everything in, put it in a backpack, put it in the bushes, and you're good to go.
Yep. There was one place in Portland, there was like an abandoned business park that my husband's a musician, and at one point he wanted to record his guitar. So we found this abandoned business park. He brought that in an amp, and he just played there. And it was really, really, really cool. And like stuff like that is everywhere. Like you don't think about it too much, but like you said, when you need an outlet and you're looking for them, they are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a matter of like, will someone come by and tell you to like pack up and go? Will someone like throw away your stuff? Like that's what you have to think about. But honestly, if you need it, you can find it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's see here. Oh, okay. Now this question, I know that you've done a full video on it. So I will link this one down in the description if you guys want to check out her video. And I mean, you don't even have to answer it. because I'll just direct them to your video. But it's pretty much just how do you keep up with hygiene, and yeah, I'll just link your video down in the description. If you want to like throw anything in on it like right now, that's fine. But hopefully, you know, maybe I have some people that haven't heard of you before and I can like send them over to you.
If you want, I mean, honestly, that video is pretty good. My biggest piece of advice is always just like if you find a sink, utilize it. As embarrassing as it is to like go into a Taco Bell and like go into the bathroom and like wash your hair out a little bit and walk out with wet hair,
Yeah.
like nobody at that Taco Bell cares enough.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're an idiot or any of that. So I did that a couple times. Going to a gym, getting a cheap gym membership is what I would highly recommend.
Yep.
There are some for $5 and $10. But then also just finding ways to keep yourself clean, and a lot of that is body wipes, and a lot of that is deodorant, and also they have like drying sprays. So like you said with your feet, spraying those on the bottom of your feet before you put socks on, making sure your socks are clean, like all of that is super duper important.
Yeah.
And there's very easy ways that you can keep hygienic and make sure you're doing okay. Also, I would recommend always like getting cologne or perfume, because at the end of the day, if you want someone to think you are not homeless, if they think you smell nice, that is the ultimate way. Smell is like the biggest scent people harp on. So if you smell good, people will be like, oh, they're fine.
Yeah, and it's like the biggest compliment you can get too, especially like when you're homeless and somebody says like you smell good. It's like oh my God, you think I smell good?
It literally is just like, it makes you feel so good because you're so always insecure about it.
Yeah.
I remember someone was like, you smell amazing today.
Yeah.
And I went home and I was just like, I'm awesome. And by home, I mean my car. So I was just like, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we call it, you just get in the habit of saying home because that's like the best way to cover your tracks in conversations. Like, I'm not always just gonna, and plus it is, what you have set up is still your home. Like, that's where you go, that's where you spend your time. So to us, it is, that's the closest thing we have to a home, and that's what we want to call it. But at the same time, I don't want to be at work and be like, oh yeah, as soon as I get back to my tent, I'll, like, that'd be an awkward conversation.
That was the biggest thing that in one of my homeless videos, I did say that. I was just like, every night when I would go home, and someone was just like, haha, I caught you in a lie. And I was just like, you realize that my car was my home. So
yeah,
I would have, like, even if I didn't have that, I would still call wherever I was staying my home, because at that time, that's what it was. And there's this kind of idea that, like, oh, you're going to catch me out on something because, oh, I didn't use the right vernacular. And it's just like, no, there are coping mechanisms we have in place to like have it set up so people don't catch me in my daily life thinking or like knowing I'm homeless. Like, yeah.
And I mean, I kind of foresee that stuff happening to me in the future, and I know that we have the hard work and the determination to get out of the situation. And I essentially wanted to document the whole story beginning to end. And I could see it in the future, like people saying, oh, you were never really homeless. Like I've seen people who are actors, celebrities who claim that they were once homeless, and people like doubt them for it, but like here, for me and the content I produce, it's all right here. Like you've seen me like living in a tent, like all the way. I started my channel, I think it was right around the same time as your hygiene video, but it was like November, December last year, right when it was winter. So yeah, it's like just hoping it's like inspirational for people to be able to know that they can overcome any obstacles in their life.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So, okay, I have a new question. This is one I thought about. It was right afterwards, but since we're kind of on a similar topic. So as far as your job and your jobs and your YouTube channel, or personal life and your YouTube channel, what did you do to ensure that people in your life that didn't know about you being homeless, or how did you maintain your anonymity online, I guess is the question.
Well, until very recently, my full name wasn't publicly available. Like, I just didn't talk about my full name. I didn't do any of that, and I never really posted about my YouTube on like anything that was mostly like people who know me in real life. Like, the best example is Facebook. I really only use Facebook to keep in contact with like relatives who I don't think follow me otherwise, and who I think if they followed me on other platforms, they would be shocked.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just I just kept it separate. I just didn't include like people who I like knew personally in my videos. I didn't make videos that were targeting them. I didn't make them on subjects that I think they would like. So even if it was like, you know, my friend is scrolling through YouTube and one of my videos gets recommended, I don't think it's a topic that they would enjoy per se. So it's just, it was always really, really easy for me to keep those kind of things separate. And then when my name got thrown into it, I was just like, you know what, my name's already out there. I posted on Facebook about it. And I was just like, hey guys, I have this many subscribers on YouTube. This is who I am. That's fine. People were pretty supportive, but again, it, like, generally nobody cared. Like, it maybe got like 2 likes. Some people were like, I didn't know you did that. But I mean, at the end of the day, for me, keeping things separate was pretty easy, because if you looked for me under my real name, like if you wanted to add me or like follow my Instagram, where I post all my art and I post about my videos, you would have to know the moniker I go by. And if I didn't want you to have that, you just wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
So it's like coworkers who would like find it, they would know, but I also wouldn't post a lot about being homeless at the time.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, you know, if I saw someone follow me, I was just like, I don't want them to know, so I'm gonna either hide my stories from them, or I'm going to make sure they don't see this. It was pretty easy for me to keep my anonymity, because I just didn't put my name, and I also didn't put my face out there. I feel like it's easier for people to be like, oh, that's not Shannon, if they can't see me.
True.
The moment they see me, they'll be like, oh, okay, so Shannon is doing this, and this. So I was very mindful of that. I didn't want people to know who I was, and I was very careful to keep those kind of lives separate, because, I mean, generally in my personal life, I think other than my husband, I think like about like 5 people generally care and want to check in and see how I'm doing. Other people are just kind of like, oh, that's that girl from high school, or like, I don't know. I don't think people generally cared that much.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, because it's I've had a couple of people ask me about it, and they like, I try to keep my real name offline, and I go under an alias. It's by my basil plant right here. But yeah, but people have asked me, it's like, well, you know, your face doesn't have a VPN and your face doesn't have an alias, and it's like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to cross that bridge when I get to it, you know, because I really believe in what I was doing. Like, I feel like getting the message out there is more important than like my pride, you know, at this point. And that's what like really pushed me to get started, because it's bigger than me, you know. Like, I feel like if I can help other people, it doesn't matter what it feels like for me at the end of the day, because I'll feel good that I helped somebody.
Exactly. You know? And there's also the thing that I think about, I used to tell this to my husband all the time whenever like one of us was going through something. This was kind of our mantra. It's like, whatever the worst case scenario of this situation is going to be, like if someone, you know, finds my face and they find out, oh, this is Shannon, and I went to high school with her, and now she's homeless. Like, what is that actually going to do to me? Because nothing. It's not going to do anything. I'm still going to wake up. I'm still going to go to work. I'm still going to have these things that I need to do. So why am I focusing on that when I can just continue to move forward? Like, worst case scenario, if someone were to find out my real name, or if someone like in my family were to find out I was homeless, like, yeah, that would stress me out. But is that going to make anything worse than it is right now? Probably not. Probably not. So I can just continue moving forward and continue to do what I need to do.
But one thing I always say is that what other people think of me is none of my business. And that,
yes, that's a great line.
And that I'm just a sap for those little tiny sayings. It's on, hun. Just because I feel like if they've stood the test of time, they really must have an important lesson behind them, and they must, like, just like Aesop's fables, you know,
Yeah.
they've lasted this long because they teach an important lesson. So I'm always, and plus my grandfather used to always say them to me, and he was like a father figure. So yeah, those little one-liners have always stuck with me, and I think that one's a good one as far as worrying about how people perceive you.
That one's really good. I remember, I think I first heard that one said by RuPaul.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, that fundamentally changed how I perceive things, because I would worry a lot about, like, oh, this person doesn't like me. Why don't they like me? I need to, like, be nicer. I need to change my tone. I need to change who I am. And I would do that with certain people in order to make them, I guess I wanted them to care more. But at the end of the day, it's like, if someone doesn't care, that's none of my business. Yeah. Because I care about me enough. And I know I'm good. I think I'm good, and therefore I am. Like, that's how I would think of it. And so, like, that type of, like, those little lines stick with you, and they help you in, like, the strangest ways. Because I never thought, like, I would be homeless thinking that and being like, okay, now let's go forward.
Absolutely. I remember, I think you might like this one too. I had an English teacher, and I think it was like my freshman year of high school. And she had said, one who whittles themselves to suit others will eventually whittle themselves away.
Yes, that one's good.
So it's just be yourself in anything and everything you do, you know, like, because at the end of the day, you and your partner are the only people that are with each other, you know.
Yeah.
Or if you're single, you're the only one. At the end of the day, you're the one who's with yourself. But let's see. Okay, any notable experiences with the public and the homeless community? So, like, separately, I guess.
Yeah. So I had pretty generally terrible experiences with the public. Like, if the public knows you're homeless, your experiences go from, like, neutral to really, really bad. Like, I don't know, when you're at a Starbucks and you look, quote, presentable and not homeless, and you look like, you showered, you're in a dress, maybe you look nice that day, people will treat you very differently, even if you're doing the same things that you're homeless. So if you spend 7 hours in a Starbucks the entire day and you drink multiple coffees, people will still treat you as like, oh, she's just studying, oh, she's just doing this. If you come in sweatpants and like a messy bun, and you haven't showered, and you're tired because you didn't get enough sleep last night because teenagers were pounding on your car window all night, you get treated a lot differently. People won't make eye contact with you. People won't seem to, like, acknowledge your existence. Like you said earlier, they won't give you eye contact. And that's, like, one of the basic human things of, like, when you see someone, you kind of, like, connect eyes, and you're like, oh, they acknowledge me, I acknowledge them. When you're homeless, that just stops happening. And when people know you're homeless, that stops happening even more. So for me, like, generally the public experience was really bad. I had some pretty gnarly things happen that was just not great. But then my experience with the homeless community has been entirely positive. I know I told you about this, but, like, there was a guy and his son who were also homeless. They were, like, two adults who were homeless, living together out of their car. They stayed in the same Winco and the Walmart parking lot that we did. And they got out of homelessness in Oregon. And at one point, we ran into each other at the library, and they called me over and they said, hey, we were homeless together, basically, and we know you're homeless now. If there's ever a time you need to shower or you need a place to sleep because it gets really cold and, like, you just need time and you want to go inside, you can come to our apartment. And they offered that to me and my husband. So it wasn't like, there was no reason they needed to do that, basically. It was just a kind thing happening between people who had gone through the same experience. And I still think about that, like, every couple of days, of just, like, that immense kindness that was done onto me, even just the offer, because they didn't know me. They didn't even know my name. we hadn't spoken. We had just acknowledged each other as being, oh, you're on that side of the parking lot, we're over here. Maybe come over here, there's less cameras. Maybe come over here, here's some water. Like, we had never, like, really spoken. And the fact that they did that and they, like, went out of their way to do that, like, one thing, that's completely impacted my life. And I still think about that, and I still, like, I almost want to, like, write them and, like, find them and be able to talk to them. But it's just something that small meant so much to me, and I still just, that's just what the homeless population is like, though. Because we all know what it's like to live without. So when we have more than we need, we just want to give it to other people. We just want to help other people, and we just want to make sure that they're okay.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's just a camaraderie amongst homeless people it's unmatched. You know, as soon as they figure out that someone's in the same situation, they just want to help. Like, we'll give you the shirt off their back, you know?
Exactly.
And it's sweet. And I think so many people, they just don't know that, or they overlook the minor kindnesses. Because I always see that when, you know, some story does come out about, hey, this homeless person did a nice thing, it immediately goes viral. But it's more common than people think, you know? And I think it's just the fact that nobody looks at homelessness that way is why the stories are, like, extra touching, because they don't think it ever happens. But yeah, it's everybody, like you said, everybody's in the same situation, and they all have the same goals, same journey. They can empathize with each other. And yeah, you want to help out your fellow person, you know?
And there's also the fact that it's like, when you're homeless and you're talking to someone who isn't homeless, there's like a guard up, like, constantly, because you're like, there's a guard up constantly because you're sitting there and you're just kind of thinking, like, this person's going to find out, they're going to treat me different, they're going to pity me, they're going to be condescending, they're going to tell my boss, they're going to do all this stuff that's going to get in the way. But then when you're talking to other homeless people, it's literally just like, oh, you already know. You know the thing that I don't tell people. Yeah. You know the thing that we're both going through. You're going through it as well. There's, like, this innate understanding that's almost like trauma bonding. And so there's just, like, this huge level of trust with a person who is homeless that already knows that you're homeless. There's this, like, understanding that, like, oh, we get each other. We don't have to, like, bullshit each other. It's really nice.
Absolutely. And I actually recall there was a short period of time after Christmas where my girlfriend and I had gotten Airbnb for a couple nights to do laundry, take a shower, and just, like, feel normal. And I'd had a separate homeless experience, and I had spent that time in the city when I was younger. And this guy had come up to us, and we were still smoking at the time. He, like, asked us for a cigarette or something, but he didn't. Maybe he recognized me or something, but he's sitting there, like, giving my girlfriend compliments, and he's like, oh, and, you know, like, what did he say? It was, like, the funniest thing, because he's like, oh, you don't know this, but your man's, he knows the streets, and you're the one who keeps him in check, or something, like, blah, blah, blah. We must have crossed paths at some point, because, like, he knew me, and, like, he kept, I mean, or he mistook me for somebody else, I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, he knew, like, despite the fact that we were, like, really standing outside of a place, I don't know, he just sensed it about us.
Yeah.
But, let's see. All right, so this is kind of, I guess this would be an extension. I know you just talked about the man and his son who are also homeless. This question is, what supports did you have that you considered most beneficial while homeless?
Honestly, I think the most beneficial support I had or could ever have was my husband. I'm so lucky to have gone through it with him, because having someone who fully understands what you're going through and is just there for you, and it's so important, because I'm sure you've had this, but there are nights where it just gets to be a lot mentally, and those are really dark nights, and me and my husband would both have it, and sometimes it would feel like trading off. Like, you're going through a hard time, so I'm going to be the rock. I'm going to tell you what we need to hear. I'm going to be straightforward. I'm going to go over everything, and we're going to fix this problem right now. And then some nights I would be the person who needs that, where I was just really struggling mentally, and I didn't know how we were going to do anything, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was freaking out. And then it would be him there holding my hand, supporting me, just being completely 100% just there with me in that moment. And if I didn't have that, I don't know what I would have been able to do. I don't know what I would be able to really accomplish, because, like, just being a woman going through homelessness, that's difficult enough. So, like, having a man there to protect me, and also having him there just to be with me mentally, that was the biggest support. And I cannot thank him enough, and I cannot be any more grateful for that experience, because he was just wonderful.
Absolutely. I mean, I fully agree. Like, I mean, I couldn't imagine being alone in this situation. For me personally, when I'm in isolation, my mental health is in rapid decline. And yeah, it's just as you say, like, you know, thank God, like, our bad days alternate between us so that one person can kind of encourage the other. But it's just good to just know that you're not alone, in the sense that you have somebody physically with you, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely think that's like second to none. And I think I'll leave the rest of that thought, because I'm pretty sure there is a question in here about that we talk about later. Let's see. So what type of obstacles did you face? I believe this is far as what type of obstacles did you face as far as like trying to get a place or like reintegrate fully into society? I mean, I know that you had a job, but just I guess it would be more or less getting a place.
Yeah, my main obstacle was, like, honestly, money and the debt I was in. I wasn't able to get, like, high-paying jobs at any point. So it wasn't like I was making racks on racks on racks at all. I was just barely getting by, even for homelessness. And then the idea that I was going to have, like, this refuge of money and be able to afford these different places, it didn't exist. So it's like I would apply to, you know, not, like, rundown places that weren't as great, but at the same time, if they ran my credit, I wasn't going to get in. So it became an issue of, like, I can't even apply because it's a waste of money, because they're not going to say yes, because I have terrible credit, because I have a lot of debt, and what am I going to do with this? And it wasn't until a couple months ago I was actually able to fully pay off that debt.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, it takes a long time, and it's overwhelming. So that was the main obstacle, because I just wasn't, I just didn't see it. I didn't see it being something I could overcome. I also was, like, being homeless in a terrible place to be homeless. Like, the cost of living was exceptionally high, which is one of the things people, like, have asked me about, like, where would you, or, like, what would you do differently in that situation? I would be like, I would move to a different place.
Yeah.
If I had the ability to, I would have, like, researched places where the cost of living was exceptionally lower, because I just realized I switched San Jose out for Portland, Oregon, both of the most expensive places in the world to live, and I was just like, why can't I live here with all my debt, and why can't I get a job that pays better, even though there's, like, nothing here? It was just a lot. It was a lot.
And so, I believe that we spoke previously about the application fees, and
oh yeah,
it's just too much of a gamble that it almost feels like you're gonna lose it anyways. You know, like you say, like, you know, your credit score is not good. You know, like for us, we have, like, student loans and things like that, and it's like, well, why would I put the $30 to $50 down just to hear the word no? You know, and
that's what always broke my heart, is the first, I think, 4 or 5 places I applied to, I genuinely was under the impression, like, I have enough saved up, this is going to be worth it. One of them has got to say yes. And I got all 4 no's back on the same day. And I looked at it, I was like, that was $200.
Yeah.
I'm out $200 and I don't have anything for it. And there's some people who are like, oh, $200 is nothing, and they can like fly away. But for me, I had worked so hard for that money, and I knew how hard I worked, and I wasn't sleeping, and I, was stressed out, and I was, insanely warm because it was one of the hottest summers in Portland, and I was like, I thought I was going to be able to shower and have all these things going for me, and I just wasn't able to do that. And the risk attached to you're going to apply and it's not guaranteed was so much when I was doing it that I just stopped applying because it just became not worth it, because I just felt like my credit is so bad, I have so much debt, nobody's going to want me. Nobody's going to want this. And so when I got into my place now and I applied, and they were just like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like, they barely checked anything. Yeah. They were just like, oh yeah, you're fine. I was sitting there and I was amazed, and I like cried for like 3 hours because I was just like, oh my gosh.
And I think a lot of people don't understand too is, homelessness in and of itself, it becomes very expensive, because just normal things that, like, let's say heat and like in the winter, staying warm, or trying to stay cool, or keeping your flashlights lit, like buying batteries. Last winter, before I realized I should be buying like large grill tanks of propane, we bought the little green Coleman things and for our lanterns, and it was just expensive. We were spending $50 to $100 a day just to survive, and then like eating out and things like that, and your options are very limited. Like, it's all processed foods. Like, I think we've talked about this before, as far as like gaining weight and homelessness, because there's not like healthy options, or you just can't afford it. But I think a lot of people don't understand that when you get into the day-to-day struggle of homelessness, and even if you're working, you have money coming in, you still have a lot of money going out. Like, someone can go and turn on their sink, but we have to go and buy 5-10 gallons of water to have water, and it adds up quickly.
I genuinely think I spent more money per day when I was homeless than I do now, because you have to continuously, you buy food, you can't really store it.
Yep.
If you can store it, it can go bad, and then you eat, and then you get sick, and then that's more wasted money because you need to buy medicine, or you need to just like take work off.
Or you have to buy ice to keep everything like cold.
Ice, you have gas in your car, you have all these things going on. Because for me, I was homeless during the worst time, because Portland had one of the hottest summers, and it also had one of the worst winters. It was called snowpocalypse. Like, if you look up images, it doesn't seem that bad, but like, people in Portland have no idea how to adapt to snow. It was my first time in snow. It was a lot. And living that in my car, it was just such a shock, because it's like, I need to run this car 24/7 in order to stay warm.
Yeah.
I had like the cops who would like knock on the window and be like, you need to leave. They were coming by and being like, are you okay? Because this is such like, this isn't okay. You're probably going to want to go to a shelter. And I was like, I have no way to get to the shelter. I can't go. I'm not going to leave my husband. I can't go to a shelter. Like, it was a lot of stuff. And so for me, like, I just think about, like, now when I'm not homeless, I can have days where it's like, oh, I have food in the fridge, I have water, I'm fine. I don't need to buy anything. I don't need to get anything. I don't even need to go outside. Homelessness, you don't have that. You always have to get water. You always have to get food. You always have to go somewhere. And there's always a risk of like getting kicked out or needing to go somewhere else to just maintain the facade of like, I'm not loitering here. I swear I'm using your services. So that's something I think about a lot, is that now I'm in a position where I don't need to buy things as much.
Yeah.
But when I was homeless, I needed things all the time, constantly. And so I was spending way more than I am now.
Oh, absolutely. Like, especially how you talked about like going to Starbucks. Like, if you want to go somewhere and use their outlets and not draw attention to yourself, you immediately have to buy something. And then if an hour has passed, you feel like you have to buy something again just to kind of maintain a reason for why you're there. you know?
Oh yeah, it's when you're at a Starbucks. That's one of the things that I think about a lot. Is that if you are a homeless person at a Starbucks, you need to spend at least $20 to get a full day in that Starbucks.
Yep.
And you can't actually drink what you want to drink, because it's like, if I get like iced coffee, I'm keeping that iced coffee on the table the entire day, so people know, okay,
yeah, I bought
they
something.
have this much left.
Yeah.
They like, it's such a, not a status symbol, but it's like, you can't kick me out because I'm drinking this coffee. You
Yeah.
can't kick me out because I'm using your services.
It's like a placeholder.
Yeah, you have to be protective over it, because there was one time, not me, but one of my friends was in a Starbucks, and they did get kicked out because they drank all their stuff, and they're like, hey, you've been here a couple hours, we really need you to like move and get the table to someone else. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you have nowhere else to go, you become like really mindful of those things.
Absolutely. I mean, some days, like we're near a plaza, so sometimes we'd bounce place to place just to kind of not stay in one place too long. Like we'd be between Panera or Starbucks or Wendy's, or like, and just we wouldn't even like get any. It'd be like $1 burger here, a small coffee here, like always just getting the minimum things, but just constantly moving. And it just, you rack up so many different costs. And somebody had asked me recently, well, what about government assistance? And it's like, well, we have a job. I mean, the system is flawed in so many ways, because if you're actually trying and you have a job and you're working, they're going to say, well, then you're all set. Like, we're not going to give you food stamps. We're not going to give you any benefits because you have a job. You're good. But it's like, a lot of times a job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, it's not enough, especially when you have these vast day-to-day expenses and you're trying to save, and it's tough.
Exactly. And it's just it's a matter of like, even if I want to save, I can't, because I need to survive and I need to put this forward. And it's just like, yes, I could spend all day just sitting in my car with the air off, with it off, save gas, and I could get like a water and an apple. That could be all I have to eat. But I can't live like that. Like, that's not healthy. And
Absolutely.
even if like being homeless generally isn't healthy, and you're already like, you're gaining weight or you're losing weight or what's going on, you still need to try. And the fact that you can't actually try without spending a lot of money, it's, the system's so flawed. It's really upsetting.
Yeah,
it really is.
And it's almost like designed in a way to keep people down. Like I say,
Absolutely.
you wanna, if you're trying to get benefits, and they say, well, you need to make under this, and then people start shooting to make under that, and then they start being reliant on the assistance. It's just broken. I don't think it's really set up in a way to help people get out of poverty. It's almost like it's set up to keep people in it and keep people dependent on government benefits, and it's tough.
Very.
Let's see. Do you have any? All right, so I remember this one was kind of a tough one last time. Do you have any ideas of programs that could be put in place to help others in similar situations?
Again, I don't really have direct ideas. I think that takes like knowledge that I don't have, and I as much as I'm critical of the system, I don't have like a solution for the system. I know there is that one country that did solve homelessness. Like, they solved it.
Yeah, I think it was Sweden or something like that.
It was Sweden or Norway, and I think if someone has solved the problem of homelessness, I think that should be implemented immediately.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the main things is that I don't think it should be commonplace, or acceptable even, that we have criminals who have like housing, food, all of that done and paid for, when we don't have the same thing for homeless people, when we don't have a place for people to generally go where they are safe, where they are looked after, where there's places where they can get jobs, where there are places where it's like, okay, instead of going back on the streets, we can provide you with this job. It pays this much. You'll be doing this. Like, I think there is a way to solve the problem. I don't know the way, but I just thought about it. Someone mentioned it to me, and they were like, isn't it weird that, like, prison systems are safer than the streets, and we have these people who are living on the streets who don't have access to the things that the prison system has? And that really messed me up for a little bit, because I was just like, why not?
No, absolutely.
There's room.
And I mean, I fully understand what you're saying too, because I say the same thing about politics. It's like, I know nothing about it. Like, don't ask me my opinion, because I don't have one, because I don't understand. It's just not something that I'm knowledgeable about. But yeah, I fully get what you're saying. I think that homelessness is such a complex issue. It's almost as if like each person needs like some sort of social worker to address like mental health issues, childhood trauma, substance abuse issues. But I know of a lot of homeless people who do. Wintertime rolls around, they commit a crime to go wait in jail, or they'll go into treatment, or they'll go into the hospital with an injury just so they can get some food and shelter for a little while, get out of the cold. And it's like,
that's when you know the system's messed up, when you have people who are like, I need to commit a crime in order to get the help I need, in order to get housing.
Absolutely.
That's not okay.
My girlfriend was just watching an episode of Shameless where somebody did the exact same thing. You know, they needed the thing, and that's like, it's one of the reasons why we're kind of glued to our state. We're in Massachusetts. We're both on state. The only benefit we get is we have state health insurance. We were approved for that. So it's like, that's what kind of keeps us chained to the state, because health insurance is like so important, especially when anything can go wrong. I mean, and injury and medical bills is what led us to this situation. So now that I have health insurance, I don't want to let it go for anything, you know? But it's tough because, you know, when you live in a state like that, houses are very expensive, or places, studios in Boston, just a single room apartment are $1,500 to $2,000 in the city, and there's no studios under $1,000 even in like rural areas. But let's see. Okay, here we go. How is your mental health before, during, and after your homeless experience?
So I have always struggled with my mental health. I've been diagnosed with like generalized anxiety disorder and like clinical depression multiple times throughout my life. So I would never say that, you know, homelessness gave me this. However, what I will say is homelessness amplified it to a severe degree that I was not ready for and prepared for. I mean, the last couple months, I was dealing with these really like horrendous chest pains. I genuinely thought I would be having a heart attack, and it felt like there was a hand squeezing on my heart. And that warps in my head all the time, because if I have like this slight pain and then I'm already freaked out about my living situation and I don't have insurance and I'm sleeping in a car and I have all these thoughts, then it gets worse and worse and worse because I'm getting anxious, and then I think I'm going to die. Like, all these things snowballed, and it was really, really bad. It was such a spike in my depression and my anxiety, and I'm still not recovered from it. And it's something that's like always going to stick with me, because going through that, like going through homelessness, people don't realize how like traumatic it can be. Like, I didn't realize how traumatic it can be, because even thinking about those nights of like, I'm going to sleep genuinely thinking I'm not going to wake up in the morning, and I'm going to bed because my husband's at work and he's like working a shift as a janitor, and he's going to come back and find me like dead in the car. Like, that sticks with you. And there's just like other little things that stick with you in a way that like you're just not prepared for. Like, I can't stand if someone like knocks on my door.
Yeah.
I told you this last time, but like if someone knocks on my door and it's just like a delivery, like an Amazon package, or it's just like my landlord just checking in and being like, I just want to make sure everything's okay. If they knock on my door, I am 100 times more anxious than if someone rings the doorbell. I'm scared of what's behind that door because I think it's a cop. I think it's someone kicking me out. I think it's bad. I can't handle it. And it feels silly because I used to be able, if someone knocks on my door, you open the door, you see who it is. Not anymore. And things like that change a lot for you when you're homeless, like just little things. So I think my mental health is a lot worse. However, I have grown. I've learned a lot. I refuse to see it as just like a negative.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, mental health is something that, like, when you're homeless, if you already are dealing with stuff, it just gets worse.
Absolutely. I remember that I had mentioned before that, yeah, I mean, just being homeless when you're at home, when you're in your space, it's like it's just a constant state of anxiety and fear that someone's going to find you, someone's going to mess with your things, or if you're at work, you're always worried, is somebody breaking into my area, is somebody taking my stuff? It's, trying to keep as many possessions on you, and like I'm always carrying things in my backpack. Like I'll always have I have a Nintendo Switch. It's something I like to play, but just always keeping things so close to you because you own so little that you care so much about the little things that you do have, and that stuff it does stick with you, because you feel so, the instability makes you feel like so uncertain just at all times, and I can imagine that it is something that sticks with you even once you're reintegrated. It's just a heightened sense of being aware of your surroundings and worrying about the other shoe dropping.
Yeah, I've talked to people before, and their biggest thing was like, the entire time you're homeless, you are in a constant state of fight or flight.
Yeah.
And that's just not healthy to be in. So if you imagine like the stress of just being in an argument with someone and how like shaky you get because you don't know, like, is this going to come to blows? What have you? That's homelessness 24/7. If you're like, if the weather gets too bad, all your stuff is gone.
Yeah.
If there's just things that most people don't have to think about that when you're homeless, you have to think about constantly. And it's really, really bad. And so, honestly, I view it and I'm just like, okay, that's not healthy for anyone. I'm not the only one who's going to go through this because I was homeless. And it's just a matter of, like, moving forward with it,
Absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, no, it's tough. And I think I'd also mentioned previously about somebody who has given you a hard time about it. And it's just, as much as we can appreciate the situation and be grateful for the things that we've learned from it and it growing us as a person, there's still a lot of negatives that we don't want to relive on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes it's just nice to forget, I mean, it's something you think about often. So sometimes you just want to live as I don't know, comparable to the people who haven't been homeless before.
Oh yeah, like there's been a lot of like people who assume like, oh, like I said before, like I'm lying and I'm using it as a badge of like honor and I'm bragging about it and it's just this fun thing. There's like a lot of people who for some reason think that's the case, and I just kind of sit there and I was like, I don't know how I can emphasize this to you, but I don't want people to go and think like homelessness is like a cool or fun thing. It's something that you go through. It's something that like you live through, and then hopefully you get out of.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you move forward from it, and it's not this fun, radical, cool thing that you can brag about. Like it's not like, I don't know, it's not like you buy a purse and you're just like bragging about this new purse. It's nothing like that. And so whenever someone brings that up, I just kind of sit there and I'm like, you are very, very lucky. And I am very, very happy that you've never had to go through it, that that's your thought process in terms of like, oh, Shannon's using this to be edgy, because it's not an edgy or fun thing. It's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd actually, it was right after our first interview that I had found a creator who chooses to be transient. It's like a lifestyle choice for him, and he like just goes around committing crimes and, I don't know, doing bad stuff and glorifying homelessness. And hey, like look at the life you can live, and you can just go online and everybody will pay for whatever you want. And it's really not a good message to send, especially to young impressionable audiences, you know.
That really upsets me. Like that kind of stuff just bothers me, because it's like, even if it's just one person,
Yeah.
if 100 people watch that video, they're going to be like, oh, okay, so homeless people do this. I remember there was a woman who, like my mom's friend, and she had like this terrible idea of like what homelessness was.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she was just like, well, there's a homeless couple who they have a car and they'll just panhandle. They'll drive someplace and they'll panhandle, but they have a car, so they're fine. And I was just like, just because someone has a car doesn't mean they have their daily necessities.
Absolutely.
Like, that doesn't equate. So I was just sitting there. I was like, it's really, I don't know. I don't want to be like too harsh, because it's just like, it's very clear that these people do not have the experience of being homeless, because most homeless people don't like gatekeep.
Yeah.
Most homeless people don't like do that. But like, for people to gatekeep homelessness, and also for people to like run around and promote this like negative idea of what homelessness is, that like no one's dumb enough to not know that's not gonna hurt people. Like, it's very upsetting.
Yeah, and I think it's just ignorance, because I hear a lot of comments like that are as simple as like, oh, you're homeless, why do you have a phone? Like, why aren't you getting a place? It's like, well, the phone's a very big resource, especially as far as getting jobs, keeping in touch with jobs in emergency situations, finding resources online, or just even entertainment. Like, are we not allowed to enjoy ourselves? You know, are we not allowed to escape from our reality for a moment by like indulging in a Netflix show or watching YouTube or something like that? You know what I mean? And yeah, I think it just really boils down to a lot of things people say are easier said than done, and it just comes down to ignorance. They just don't understand, you know. Sorry.
Yeah.
The mosquitoes love me today, and I had to give the ducks some of these worms. Hey guys, there you go. They were trying to get in the bag. Let's see. Okay, so this one. So I know you had talked about how you use like medicinal marijuana, and I just pretty much asked this to curb a stereotype, because one of the biggest things is everyone says, oh well, all homeless are on drugs. So this question is just about substances before, after, and during homelessness.
So I didn't smoke, drink, or do anything like that when I was homeless. I just basically didn't have the money to, and I couldn't afford to, and it wasn't like, I don't know, I wasn't going to, you know, partake in things like that when I was homeless, because I wasn't able to, and I also knew that stereotype, because I knew like, oh, if someone smells weed on me and they know I'm homeless, they're immediately just going to discount me as an entire person. Because, you know, someone who's going through an insanely hard situation, who is probably suffering mentally, who is forced to be in a constant state of fight or flight, why would they want to relax? Why would they want weed? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But I didn't partake in any of those things for that reason, and also just I couldn't afford to. Yeah. And then now I do smoke weed medically, just to deal with anxiety and to help me sleep. And it's super duper helpful for me, because just the generalized anxiety that I deal with from that, and just naturally, it helps a lot, and I would highly recommend it if people can afford to do it, and then if they're in a place where it's legal.
Yeah, now see, it was very similar for us too. Like my girlfriend had a medical card, but it's as soon as we became homeless, it was like, all right, well, we gotta sort out, what's important to us. Like, what do we want to do? I mean, and we definitely substituted with food. Like a lot of times, like, if we're having a stressed out day, like it's when we go cook a big meal or just eat our feelings. And
Exactly.
I think we had joked about that a little bit last time. Um, but yeah, I fully get it. It's just tough because it's like as soon as you are to give in to any one stereotype, a person is going to discount anything that you have to say because it's like, oh, see, I knew it, but
Yeah.
I also try to tell people, like, a lot of times people may even turn to drugs due to the fact that they're homeless because it's such a difficult and traumatic thing to go through, or people who even are on drugs and became homeless because of drugs. You don't know what caused them to turn to drugs. There could be childhood trauma, they could come from a domestic issue, they could come from abuse, they could have so many problems in their history that led them to drugs, and at the end of the day they're still a human being. They're still
Yeah.
deserving of empathy. They're still deserving of basic human needs, And so those are things that I try to express as much as possible because even though you can't correlate any one other thing to homelessness, even if you take two, like, even if someone does have two issues, it doesn't mean that they're discounted. Like, it doesn't mean that they don't matter anymore. Like,
Exactly.
if they're, let's say that they're a full-blown addict on like a hardcore drug and they're homeless, that doesn't mean that they should be cast aside and treated like less than, and yeah. So I mean, I don't know, that's all I can really hope for, is that people can, I know it's a big ask, but at least if some people can be more empathetic to other people, it'd just be helpful.
Honestly, like that's my biggest thing is that, like, I think once you have to reframe the situation, because if it's a total stranger, people are quick to be like, oh, that person's life doesn't matter, like, who cares, I don't know them, da da da. But like, if you just relate it, like, if this was your dad, if this
Yeah.
was your brother, if this was someone you knew, and they were struggling with mental health issues, or they were struggling with like a drug addiction, and then they ended up on the street and they were living with this, and they were stressed out of their minds, and so the thing that put them there is now like what's kind of giving them some mental resolve. Like, they're still deserving of empathy.
Yeah.
You still like should care about that person.
And
I don't know. I think once you like put it in that context, people generally try to understand. But like, if it's not someone they know and if it's not put in that context, people are so quick to write that person off.
Yeah, no, and I've been talking to more and more creators who are part of the LGBT community who have experienced homelessness because of being rejected by their parents, and it's fucking heartbreaking, So it's like, for them to go through that and face such serious rejection from their own family, and then also receive it from the rest of society just because they're homeless, it just breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's one of the worst things. Just that. God, I could go on for years about that, but like the fact that that's a commonality
Yeah.
to the point where like, so many people can relate on that front. That is so heartbreaking, and the fact that so many people are quick to write them off, like, oh well, what did they do to deserve that? It's like,
Yeah.
absolutely friggin' not. Like, no.
Absolutely. It's almost like, I know, like, there's the term victim blaming, but when it comes to someone who's in a homeless situation, it's almost socially acceptable to just blame them. And it seems like so backwards in the day and age that we're in nowadays, like current. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, yeah, so we kind of talked about this. This was about other creators, and we had talked about how we both agree that it is a problem if people are glorifying homelessness and kind of encouraging other people to make it their plan A in life, and how it's not healthy. So I'll go past those two. Okay, so here we go. And we only have we got a handful left. So we'll try to buzz through these. What was the turning point that led to you getting? I'm sorry, my girlfriend wrote this out. Like, we can't read each other's handwriting at all. We both write horribly.
It's okay.
What was the turning point that led you to getting your first place?
So for me, the big turning point was YouTube, namely because it was just a whole other form of income that I hadn't expected.
Yeah.
That ended up, supplementing it to the point where it's like, oh, you can't afford to pay for this. You can't afford to pay X amount per month now. You can't afford to put this amount down on your debt so you're not paying it off for like 6 and 7, 8 more years. It became something that is like, okay, if I could do this consistently while doing these other things, while working these other jobs, this could turn into something. And I could use this for my benefit. Because, again, it's like YouTube was started when I was homeless and before I even thought of making money with it.
Yeah.
And I think when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I was in a parking lot for a movie theater that was behind the Winco, and I remember just sitting there being like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Like, what can I do with this? And the fact that something I didn't expect turned into something very, very positive in my life, I also happen to be passionate about. It was really serendipitous, and that was really the turning point, because I don't think without that I would have been able to do it. I really don't.
Absolutely. And I remember that you telling that story about how you had reached 1,000 subscribers, and on that same day you were approached by a police officer telling you to like move out of the spot you were in, and kind of the mixed emotions about, you were riding a high about how good things were going and in your social media life, and still dealing with the lows of your situation. And I had that story fresh in my mind. We'd finished our interview and I had to run and be seen at the hospital just for like a minor infection. I'm fine now, but I just thought it was so funny that you told that story. And then I was in the same situation. I felt so good that we had finished our interview. I was so grateful and appreciative of you coming on, and at the same time, like, I'm still dealing with all these homelessness problems. But it's good to have those wins. It definitely is. It's good to have things that are boosting your morale as often as you can, even if it's something as positive affirmations or trying to practice positive self-talk to just keep you going, because it's so easy to just get into a rut of negative thinking, and it can really hold you back and push you to make poor decisions. And you need all the support and encouragement you can get in this situation.
Exactly.
So yeah, and I've been very proud of your success and your drive, and it has been very inspiring, and congratulations for how far you've gotten. It was quick.
I really don't understand how quick it happened. I don't understand like why, but I think, I don't know, for me it just is really not affirming, but it's just really interesting that like this thing that I took and I made selfishly because I was going through a hard time and I just needed something to be my own has like kind of morphed into this other thing. It's very, very interesting, and it's very, very cool, and I would never, I don't know. It's really overwhelming just generally to talk about it, because it's like without what I've done online, I wouldn't be even like in a safe space. I wouldn't have what I have. And that's absolutely one of the like strangest realities of my life right now.
Well, I can't say that I could think of another person who's more deserving. You definitely worked really hard for it, and I'm really glad. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
Let's see. All right, so current thoughts on, I know you've kind of touched on some of this already, but current thoughts on your experience and what were the most important lessons that you learned?
So, I can think about it like positively and negatively. I try to not think of it as an entire negative because I don't know. I feel like that's going to warp it so bad because there were such tremendous lows from it that it's like, yeah, those can be overwhelming. Like the darkness can overtake all of the light. However, I am who I am because of it. I feel as if I'm a more empathetic, understanding person. I've grown in my relationship. I've become a better person. And it's just something that's like, I refuse to look at it as a solely negative experience because there's so much that I gained from it that I would never take away.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned a lot about kind of letting go of things. Like I've kind of learned how to like make any situation appear less bad because I was homeless living out of my car. There was like a 3-week period where my car was just completely broken down in a Walmart parking lot. I've just had to deal with the strangest stuff, and every night I would try to like make it make sense in my head and be like, it's not that bad. You know what? Things could be way worse. And I would like try to make things worse in my head and be like, see, at least that isn't happening. And so I was sitting there, I was like, that's a definite positive trait because it's like, if I can do that, I can work through anything. I can cope with anything. And that's a really important like living technique that you need to be able to have because if things go wrong, which they inevitably will, you need to be able to handle it. So I've definitely learned that I'm kind of like that. And I've also learned just generally to be a more respectful person to people in my real life. And if you see someone, just give them the common courtesy of looking them in the eyes, of smiling at them, of being just a human to them. Because so many homeless people don't do that. They're not respected. Absolutely. And even if you just stare them in the eyes, say hi, ask them how they're doing, and care about what they're saying, and not just do it to be polite, like, that could change their day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I think I'd said previously too, it's like, it's the little things that count so much to us, you know? And it's like just as simple as being treated like a person can do so much. And you don't know what's going on in that person's life at that moment in time. You could, that little hi, how are you doing, how's your day, could literally save their life. You know, so many people turn to suicide because they feel like they have no other way out. They feel like they're not even worth breathing the same air as the people that pass by them. And you can get to really low places, you know, so you don't know what small little kind act could like really save somebody.
Exactly.
I know. I already know. I think everybody already knows the answer to this question at this point. But would you have skipped the experience if you could?
Never. I don't think thinking like that for me would be mentally healthy because then it's like, oh, what kind of person would I be? Where would I be now? Like, you'll just drive yourself crazy thinking like, oh, I could have been this, and this, and I could have been so successful, and then it's not worth it. I would never change the experience for anything because I honestly feel like I'm a better person for it. Would I wish the experience on anyone else? No, but I wouldn't change it.
I think that's a really good way to put it. That you wouldn't wish it on other people, but going through it, you know that it's had its benefits.
Yeah.
All right. So this is actually one of my favorite questions in here. It is, what were some of your comforts and coping mechanisms going through homelessness?
So my biggest comfort was probably food. A lot of like, I would say my biggest comfort was definitely Taco Bell. I love Taco Bell just generally, but like, they're cheap, they're inexpensive, and it's one of those things where like you know what you're gonna get every time, and so it'll just be like, okay, I can afford this I'm having a hard day. It's cold outside. This is going to warm me up. And that was probably my chief one. Other comforts, I think, was just, I don't know, probably just having my husband there and being able to talk to him.
Oh, hold on one second. It's a helicopter, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to cut this part out.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's gone. All right,
Hey.
all right, sorry, you can continue.
No, it was just like, basically food
Yeah.
and my husband, because it's like, food is the one thing that you can actually indulge in pretty cheaply.
Yep.
And so it's just like, it was just easier to like eat than like, I don't know, stress out about everything else that was happening.
Absolutely. I mean, I fully agree with you. Like, that's like one of the biggest things in our life. Like, we're always planning a next, time where we can go to a restaurant and have like a little date night, or planning meals that we can cook together. And like, we both really enjoy cooking, and it's something that we do together. So yeah, it's just kind of like that moment of normalcy. I hope I'm saying that right. But yeah, and yeah, I mean, a lot of people, homeless or not, they use eating food as a coping mechanism. And I mean, obviously also your YouTube channel was a large outlet for you as well, that you had said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. What are some things that you wish the public knew about homelessness, or something that you'd want to say like directly to the general public?
That every single person who is on the street is deserving of respect. They are someone's son, father, brother, daughter, mother. Like, there's something important in every single person, even if they're on the street. And that they're all deserving of respect, they're all deserving of time, they're all deserving of care. And to treat them like less than is not only inappropriate, but it's ultimately the most discouraging thing you can do to any homeless person. It's one of the worst things you can do. And it saddens me how many people feel that that's acceptable. How many people go day to day thinking like treating this other living, breathing human person as less than is suddenly okay because of their circumstances, and that you're still a good person even when you do this. I think it's really, really gross, and I really wish that kind of thinking would change. That kind of like dehumanizing thinking would make a huge shift.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean, recently I had seen this video. I think it was during a protest that had gotten out of hand or something, but some people had they had found this homeless man camped up in a park or something, and they dragged all his stuff out into the street and threw it into a fire. And it was so crushing to me to see that man like come out and try and grab his things out of the fire, like crying. Like, he was an old man and he's crying, trying to like save his stuff. And it crushed me, because it's like, what did he do? What did he do to anybody? Like, and he's already as low as it can get. And why take what little he has, And it's just tough. Like you said, like, how can people feel okay about that? And I guess the answer would be is because homeless people aren't looked at as real people. And that's what I really hope, that we can change,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're more than fine.
Okay. All right. So these are like the last two questions, and I have that fan question at the end that I think you remember from last time. But I'll just roll these last two into one question. Any advice for people in similar situations, and any helpful homeless tips?
My advice, first and foremost, is get a gym membership. Look into the areas around you, find the cheapest cost of living close by. If you can move out of state or to a different place, and where the cost of living is less, that would be very beneficial. If you can't find the place nearby that you can do that to, keep your hygiene well. Definitely buy face wipes, buy body wipes, buy spray-on deodorant for your feet, for your armpits, any crevices, and just make sure you are taking time for yourself every day, because that's the one thing you miss out on. I, at a certain point, felt like I didn't get any time to myself until I was sleeping.
Yeah.
And when you realize that you're not doing anything to live for yourself, you're doing everything to live for someone else, or to like pay something off, or to stress out about something, it just doesn't help. It makes your mental health a lot worse. So find something that you like, be passionate about other things, and remind yourself that like you deserve a break, you deserve some credit, and just be kind to yourself. That would be my best advice.
Absolutely. And I am actually going to go look for that, like, foot drying spray that you were just talking about. I didn't even know something like that existed. So, I mean, that is a helpful one.
Yeah, that's something that like I didn't know beforehand, but like I said, when it got like really marshy and rainy in Portland, if you had boots, you would get something called swamp foot.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. You just want to be healthy. So there's different things that you can look into that will definitely help.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I think we're talking about the same thing, but or they might be slightly different but similar, but there's something called trench foot that a lot of people in like the army and stuff would get, but it's just from like having wet socks, you know? And yeah, it's extremely painful. I've had it before this year, and it's no fun. Like, it's just not good. It's not a good time at all. But absolutely. So, and then so then we just had a fan submitted question by Kat. She's a sweetheart. She's been like watching my channel since like I had 5 subscribers. I think she was one of the first 5. So and she actually keeps in contact with me to make sure everything's going good. She's a good friend. And she had asked, I had told her about this. She had asked, how do you find your inspiration for doing artwork?
Honestly, all my art inspiration comes from like people I see and people I interact with, whether it's like on Instagram, in public, whatnot. It's all based on like people who I personally admire or just like think is beautiful, and then I try to capture it. And I obviously, I don't feel like I come close, but I always want to pay homage to like what I think, or like how beautiful I think people are, basically. Yeah, absolutely. So that's how I find inspiration.
Yeah, I think it was something that my girlfriend and I had always noticed, is that you were always drawing like females, and the both of us have always thought that just the female form is just artwork in itself, you know? Like, I think, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's like a common agreed thing upon, like, with artwork across forever, you know? Because you see.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, that's great. I could definitely understand. I can see that. I see where you're coming from. I mean, I'm not that good at art myself. I used to like paint and stuff, but I like fell off in my teen years. But yeah, okay. So that is it. I'm probably gonna do something. I don't know. I wanted to do something to kind of like, if I were to do a Patreon, I'd want to give something back somehow. I don't know. Things that I'm mulling around in my head. But anyways.
You should definitely do a Patreon. That would be really good.
Yeah, because it was just, the whole thing is something that my editor and I talked about. Oh, which I'll mention him real quick. But I met my editor online, and he was just in a YouTube group with me, and I had seen him mentioning something about editing. He has like this comedy sketch group, and I'd asked him, I kind of told him my situation. He was like one of the first people I told about my situation. And I said, like, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'd like to do. He's actually a huge fan of yours as well, too. It's kind of funny. We watch a lot of the same stuff. But him and his girlfriend, we watch your content, and a lot of, I don't know, I guess, commentary type stuff. But he just said, yeah, like, listen, don't worry about paying me. Like, you can, whenever you get the chance, it's fine, but I like really believe in your message, and I want to help you by whatever means get it out there. So he just helps me edit, and he's been like my biggest supporter. He's been one of my biggest supports in my journey, because he pushes me to get work done. He pushes me to stay motivated, to stay positive, and no, he's really awesome. All his stuff will be down. I'm always repping him up, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing anything online anyways, because I don't know how to do any of that stuff. Like, I mean, the proof is right here with how the first interview went at my hands. So
It happened.
But I just want to thank you very much again. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you so much. I know that you're very busy and stuff like that, so I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.